Everyone loved her as perfect Marcia Brady. Her smile lit up TV screens across America, but behind that smile was a dark secret. For years, she battled cocaine addiction. She traded sex for drugs. She nearly lost everything. Her parents almost called the police on her. She spent nights in Hollywood drug dens. Nobody knew the truth until she finally spoke out at 68. The shocking confession left fans speechless. America's golden girl wasn't who we thought she was at all. Maureen McCormick was born on August 5, 1956, in Encino, Los Angeles. She was the youngest in a family of 6, with 3 older brothers, Michael, Dennis, and Kevin. Her father, Richard, was a school teacher. Her mother, Irene, stayed home and took care of the family. They were a Catholic family with Irish and German roots, living a simple, middle-class life in the San Fernando Valley. Maureen stood out early. Even as a little girl, she loved performing. She'd gather kids from the neighborhood and put on puppet shows. Her parents noticed she had something special, but they never pushed her. Out of all her siblings, she had a close bond with Dennis, often called Denny. Their connection was quiet but strong. Growing up as the only girl in the house made her tough, but also very aware of family dynamics. It helped later when she played Marcia on the Brady Bunch. She knew how siblings fought, how they laughed, how they made up. That real-life experience gave her on-screen charm more depth. Maureen's entry into show business came from something small. In 1962, at just 6 years old, she entered the Baby Miss San Fernando Valley beauty pageant and won. It seemed like a fun moment for the family, but it changed everything. A talent agent saw her, contacted her parents, and soon she had representation. Unlike many child stars, Maureen didn't come from a stage-hungry family. Her parents supported her, but gently. They wanted her to have a normal childhood. At age 7, she got her first stage role. She was already learning how to hold an audience. She moved fast. By the time she was 8, she was doing real commercial work. Directors saw something in her. They kept calling her back. Her biggest early break came in 1964. That year, she started appearing in national commercials for Mattel. These weren't just background spots. She was the face of the Chatty Cathy doll. The doll could talk, and Maureen helped sell it with her cheerful presence and clear, childlike voice. Kids across America heard her speak before they even knew her name. She wasn't just acting. She became the voice of playtime. Later, when Mattel relaunched the doll, they brought her back. She even replaced June Foray, the original voice, which was a big deal. She also voiced other dolls, Barbie included, and ended up doing voice work for over a dozen Mattel toys. Her voice became one of the most familiar in American homes during the 1960s. But Maureen didn't stop at commercials. She moved to TV acting not long after. That same year, 1964, she appeared on Bewitched. Her first appearance was short, but it stuck with people. She played Little Endora in a dream sequence. It was silly, magical, and fun. She returned for another episode the next year. Around the same time, she landed a guest role on I Dream of Jeannie. Working with stars like Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman gave her even more experience. More shows followed: Honey West, Camp Runamuck, My 3 Sons, and The Farmer's Daughter. Each show was different, and she handled them all well. She wasn't typecast. She could do comedy, light drama, and fantasy. By the end of the 1960s, Maureen had already built a solid resume. Maureen McCormick was just 13 years old when she stepped into something that would change her life forever. In 1969, she was picked out of a crowd of 1,200 kids to play Marcia Brady on the Brady Bunch. It wasn't easy. The auditions dragged on for 6 long months. She had to keep coming back again and again. But producers saw something in her. She had already done TV commercials for Barbie and Chatty Cathy dolls, and appeared in shows like Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. She even won a local beauty pageant when she was just 6. That perfect American girl image is exactly what they were looking for. In the final tests, she had to read scenes with the 2 adults who would play her parents. That sealed it. She got the part, and it changed everything. But what started as a dream role quickly turned into a trap. As Maureen got older, she started to hate being Marcia Brady. By the time the show hit its 5th season in 1973, she was 17 and over it. The scripts were too sweet, too clean, and too fake. She once said the show felt like it was stuck in a bubble. Outside, it was the 1970s. But inside the Brady house, it felt like the 1950s. She wanted out. She wanted real acting jobs, something raw, something serious. She even tried to land a role in Midnight Express, but Hollywood couldn't see past Marcia. That image stuck to her like glue. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, she was doing everything she could to feel like a normal teenager. She drank rum and coke with Eve Plum, who played Jan. Sometimes they didn't even wear bras during filming just to push back. It was their quiet way of saying, "We're not kids anymore." Even with all that going on, school was still part of her day. Sort of. California law said child actors needed 3 hours of schooling each day, and the Brady kids got exactly that. No more, no less. They studied in a trailer on set. Then it was straight back to hair and makeup. Then right into filming. That meant 9-hour days, every day. And when she wasn't filming, Maureen went to a real high school, Taft High in Woodland Hills. She was living in two worlds. One day, she was a TV daughter. The next, a regular student trying to keep up. That constant switch wasn't easy. A lot of her growing up happened under bright studio lights, not in classrooms or playgrounds. And somewhere in the middle of all this, something else happened. Something fans never saw on screen. Maureen and Barry Williams, the actor who played Greg, started falling for each other. She was 13 when they met. He was 16. By 1972, when the cast flew to Hawaii to shoot a special episode, the tension between them was obvious. That's when they shared their first kiss on a moonlit beach, away from the cameras. Maureen later said it was deep, passionate, and confusing. "I'm kissing my brother," she thought in the moment. Their relationship wasn't always smooth. It came and went, but it was real. Barry once admitted he'd hang around the set if she had romantic scenes with other guys, just to be there. At one point during the 5th season, when she was 16 and he was 19, they almost took it further. "The timing just wasn't right," Maureen said later. Even with the fame, even with the love story, the money wasn't fair. That's something fans never knew. At the height of the show's popularity, Maureen was earning $1,100 a week. That sounds decent, until you hear that the adult stars made 5 times that. And it gets worse. When the show ended and went into reruns, the adults got paid again and again. But the kids? Their contracts only gave them money for the first 10 reruns. By 1979, their checks stopped coming. Meanwhile, the show kept playing. For decades, across the world, making money for networks and studios, but not for the kids who made it famous. It stung. Even Susan Olsen, who played Cindy, said it felt wrong. They were the faces of the show, but they weren't treated that way. It was supposed to be just another episode. Marcia Brady gets hit in the face with a football and yells, "Oh, my nose!" The scene was meant to be funny, and fans loved it. But behind the scenes, it was a nightmare for Maureen McCormick. The football had to land perfectly, and everyone on set took turns throwing it at her face. Crew members, even the prop guy, tried their luck over and over again. When Peter Knight finally got it right and the director said, "Cut," Maureen was just relieved it was over. She didn't like filming that scene at all, but the irony didn't end there. On the same day that episode aired, February 9th, 1973, something much worse happened. Maureen was in a car crash. Her face smashed into the steering wheel. Her nose swelled up badly, huge and purple. She was rushed to the hospital. Luckily, it wasn't broken, but it felt like a cruel joke from the universe. On screen, she screamed about her nose. Off screen, she actually injured it. When the Brady Bunch was finally canceled in 1974, after 5 seasons, Maureen wasn't sad. She was actually glad. The scripts were getting worse. The cast was growing up, but the storylines weren't. She wanted to do more serious work. She dreamed of landing a dramatic role, maybe even something like Midnight Express, but Hollywood didn't see her that way. To them, she was just Marcia Brady forever. It had only been a few years since the Brady Bunch ended, but Maureen McCormick was already desperate to escape the shadow of Marcia Brady. She didn't want to be America's sweetheart anymore. She wanted serious roles, gritty ones, something completely opposite of the smiling, perfect teenager millions remembered. So when she heard about auditions for dark, edgy films, she ran toward them. She even tried to land a role in Midnight Express as a prostitute or heroin dealer, but the producers couldn't stop seeing her as Marcia. No matter how hard she tried, the whole wholesome image stuck to her like glue. She kept trying. In 1979 alone, she appeared in A Vacation in Hell in Skatetown, USA, both B movies that barely left a mark. Then came Dogtown, a low-budget film from 1997 that some people would later whisper about as her desperate attempt to finally break free from her good girl typecast. The film didn't go anywhere, but it showed just how far she was willing to go to erase the past. But it wasn't just the roles that changed. Maureen was changing too. In 1976, she got invited to a party at the Playboy Mansion. That night would be the first time she tried cocaine, and it didn't stop there. It opened the door to a new kind of escape. Within months, she was hooked. She started showing up high to sets, including during the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, a spin-off so bad it's now considered one of the worst shows in TV history. While the cast wore sequined costumes and sang disco versions of old songs, Maureen was spiraling. She later admitted she was doing coke during the tapings and would come to work high. It wasn't a secret for long. People noticed. Her energy was off. Her smile felt forced. By 1981, she got a chance that could have changed everything. An audition with Steven Spielberg for Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was huge, career-changing. But Maureen never got the role. Why? Because when she walked into the room, she hadn't slept for 3 days. She was still high. Spielberg offered her an orange, probably because she looked like she was about to collapse. She didn't get the part. It went to Karen Allen, and Maureen was crushed. One producer even told her she'd never work again. Around that time, something unexpected happened. A date with Steve Martin. It sounded like a fantasy. She got the invite through Florence Henderson, who knew Chevy Chase. Steve Martin had seen Maureen and wanted to ask her out. Their night started at Musso and Frank's, one of Hollywood's oldest restaurants. It should have been fun, but Maureen wasn't herself. She was spaced out, high, nervous, and when they went back to Steve's apartment and things got more personal, she couldn't focus. She didn't even laugh at his jokes. Not once. She admitted later that she ruined the moment. Steve never called her again. By the time the 1980s rolled around, Maureen McCormick wasn't just dealing with addiction. She was drowning in it. Her drug use got so bad, she needed around $100 worth of cocaine every single day. When she couldn't afford it, she started doing the unthinkable. In her own words, she admitted trading sex for drugs. One of those dealers ended up in jail later, but at the time, he was her lifeline. She described those nights in Hollywood cocaine dens as a false escape. She thought she was chasing relief. What she was really chasing was destruction. If cocaine was in front of her, she had to use all of it. She would go without sleep for days. She didn't care about anything else. Her mind and body belonged to the drug. The girl America knew as Marcia Brady was gone. What was left was someone stuck in a cycle of survival, shame, and silence. And it didn't stop there. She once let a man she met at the Playboy Mansion videotape her fully naked just to get more coke. That's how deep it got. The Marcia Brady image was dead. The real Maureen was lost. She wrote, "I wasn't her in any way. She was stuck between the role she played and the chaos she lived. People in the drug scene saw her weakness. They used it. She didn't just fall into one bad choice. She fell into many. The drugs ruled her. They erased her sense of safety, of self, of shame. Her bulimia and depression only made things worse. It was a storm. Every piece of her life was getting hit. Her parents saw it happening. They were desperate. They tried talking, warning, pleading, but by 1984, they were ready to call the cops on their own daughter. That's how bad it had gotten. Her mom and dad had watched her disappear into addiction, and they couldn't take it anymore. Maureen said she was good at hiding it, but the truth was catching up. Her behavior was spiraling out of control. She'd disappear, she'd lie, she'd show up in a state no one could ignore. Her parents hit their limit. They wanted to save her, even if it meant turning her in. That was their last hope. In Hollywood, her name was becoming a joke. People stopped hiring her. Directors didn't want the drama. One producer even told her she'd never act again. She was too risky. She'd show up high or not show up at all. She disappeared during the filming of The Brady Brides, gone for 3 days on another binge. People tried to cover for her. Others gave up on her. She had the talent, but she couldn't control herself. And the industry moved on. In 1985, Maureen McCormick's life was falling apart. She had been using cocaine for 5 years. The addiction had taken over everything: her work, her body, her mind. She had lost control. But that year, something happened. She met a man named Michael Cummings. because he wasn't from Hollywood. He didn't care about fame, and he didn't care about excuses. Their relationship moved fast, but Maureen's drug use didn't slow down. She was still chasing highs, still disappearing for days. After one scary relapse, Michael gave her a choice. Stop using or lose him. If you ever do this drug again, I'm gone, he said. That sentence hit harder than any overdose. She had been high at auditions, traded sex for cocaine, and pushed everyone away. This man? She didn't want to lose him. That was the moment something changed. Later that year, they got married. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a new beginning. But recovery didn't come easy. Maureen had to cut off everyone who used. I threw out my phone book, she said. Friends disappeared. Her old life vanished. Even her parents had almost called the police before she finally got clean. She had hurt them too. Her wedding became a turning point, not just for her sobriety, but for repairing those broken relationships. Her family began to trust her again. Her husband stood by her side, and her new life began. But getting sober wasn't just about quitting drugs. It meant facing everything she had been running from. She wrote about it later. If there was coke in front of her, she'd stay up for days doing every last grain. She'd lie, vanish, starve herself, and believe cocaine could fill the hole inside. It didn't, and stopping it brought pain like she had never felt. She had bulimia, she was depressed, she landed in psych wards. She tried everything: rehab, therapy, prayer. The drug left her body, but the sadness didn't go. That took more time. What made it harder was the mask she had worn for years. Everyone saw her as Marcia Brady, the sweet, perfect girl from TV. But Maureen wasn't her, not even close. Behind the smile was a woman breaking down. Her family had a long history of mental illness, suicidal grandparents, schizophrenic siblings, a mother who was barely hanging on. She was raised in a house full of silence and secrets. That pain sat inside her, quiet but heavy. Letting go of the drugs meant she had to face it all. And yet she kept going. She stayed clean. She rebuilt her life. Then, in 1989, something beautiful happened. She had a baby girl. They named her Natalie. Maureen had been sober for 4 years by then. That little girl was proof that healing was real. During those cocaine years, Maureen could barely care for herself. She couldn't hold a job or stay awake. But now, she was a mother, a sober one. Natalie grew up with a mother who was present, clear, and strong. That alone felt like a miracle. Maureen McCormick was once the golden girl of television, but by 2007, her life looked very different. At 50 years old, she weighed 150 pounds and was battling the emotional weight of grief. Her mother had died from cancer 3 years earlier. She had just placed her mentally disabled brother into assisted care. Everything felt heavy: her body, her mind, and her past. So when she joined Celebrity Fit Club on VH1, it wasn't just about losing weight. It was about taking control. Her daughter had pushed her to do something for herself, something healing. The show wasn't easy. She opened up about her cravings: pasta, bread, ice cream, comfort foods that became her escape. She faced grueling workouts and even more painful confessions, but she didn't quit. By the time the season ended in June, she had lost 34 pounds, nearly 23% of her body weight. It was the biggest percentage drop in the show's history. She won the whole thing. More importantly, she said, "I feel incredible." That joy didn't come easy. For decades, Maureen had lived with deep pain hidden under her smile. After the Brady Bunch ended in 1974, she struggled with bulimia. It started in high school when girls told her about eating and purging. She tried it. Then it became a habit. She hid it for years. No one asked about it, not until a blunt question on Entertainment Tonight finally opened the door. She admitted she had always wanted to talk about it, but didn't know how. In 2007, something changed. She began writing everything down, all the secrets, all the trauma. It became a book. Here's the story: Surviving Marcia Brady and Finding My True Voice. It was published in October 2008. It debuted at number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list and stayed there for 3 weeks. Maureen no longer wanted to be seen as perfect. She wanted people to know what she had survived. Her memoir revealed the worst parts: cocaine, depression, eating disorders, broken relationships. She also talked about family conflicts, including accusations of elder abuse against her brother. It was raw and honest, and it shocked fans who still pictured her as the cheerful Marcia Brady. But the most explosive part of the memoir wasn't about drugs. It was about a joke. Maureen Maureen had joked about having a fling with her Brady Bunch co-star Eve Plum. It didn't sit well. Eve was furious. Susan Olsen, who played Cindy, tried to stay neutral, but the tension split the cast. In 2010, a planned reunion fell apart because Maureen and Eve refused to be in the same room. Insiders said the feud had lasted decades. Still, time softened things. In 2019, they reunited for a very Brady renovation on HGTV. When asked about the feud, Eve laughed it off. She said people just liked drama. By late 2024, Maureen told People magazine that she often texted her old co-stars. She had even had dinner with Christopher Knight and their spouses. When Maureen McCormick joined Dancing with the Stars in 2016, most people expected lighthearted nostalgia, but what they got was something much more real. At 55, Maureen wasn't just dancing, she was fighting her way through fear, self-doubt, and years of hidden pain. Every rehearsal became a battle. The pressure built up so much that during practice for the Argentine tango, she broke down crying. Cameras caught her saying, "I feel like a failure. Maybe I'm in the wrong business." It was raw, honest, and it stunned viewers who only knew her as Marcia Brady. But when she finally performed, she transformed. The judges were amazed. One even said she looked like a 1920s movie queen. She scored 24 out of 30. Not perfect, but powerful. For her, that moment was more than just a dance. It was a win against the fear that had followed her for decades. Long before that show, though, Maureen had found strength through something even closer to her heart. Her brother, Denny. He had an intellectual disability, and their bond changed her life. As a teenager, she saw how hard it was for people like him to be included. That's when her fight began. Years later, in 2020, she became a Special Olympics global ambassador. But she didn't just show up for photo ops. She stood with athletes in Washington, D.C., lobbied for better health programs, and joined campaigns for inclusion. At one event, she said, "No words are needed because she has her son, RJ, and I've got a brother with intellectual disabilities." That quiet connection, unspoken but deep, kept her going. And at every event, every speech, she made sure Denny's story was never forgotten. In 2019, she joined her old castmates for a very Brady renovation. HGTV had bought the original Brady house for $3.5 million and decided to turn it into a perfect replica of the TV home. The team spent over 9,000 hours renovating every corner. When Maureen stepped into the master bedroom, she found something that brought her to tears. Florence Henderson's old pastel negligees. Florence had passed away just 3 years earlier. They weren't just clothes, they were memories. Later, Florence's daughter gave Maureen a small heart-shaped paperweight with gold inside. It had belonged to Florence. They added it to the house design. That small touch, hidden in plain sight, carried more emotion than any big moment on camera. Her bond with Florence went way back. They weren't just co-stars. Florence had been like a second mother to Maureen. Over time, their relationship shifted. They became equals, friends, even family. Florence had visited her just days before passing on the Dancing with the Stars set. When Maureen went to the Brady renovation premiere, she wore a heart-shaped sapphire necklace. It had been a gift from Florence, a thank you for being there. Always. Then there was Robert Reed. He played her TV dad. But to Maureen, he was more than that. As a young girl, she had a crush on him. She once said, "I wanted to marry him. I really did. He was kind, smart, and gentle." She admired everything about him. And even now, she still misses him. During filming, she often said she could feel the presence of Florence, Robert, and Ann B. Davis around her, like they were still part of the family.